Hi folks, and welcome to this week's news and community spotlights. We're excited to announce a major update to Unreal Engine 5.6 templates, designed to help you hit the ground running. Templates have been significantly reduced in size, helping decrease engine download times while also increasing the number of features in each template. A brand new option, Variants, allows you to extend templates for specific types of gameplay. Whether you're prototyping a side-scrolling platformer, building an open-world racing game, or crafting a top-down strategy title, Variants offer a more specific tailored starting point to help bring your vision to life. The following core templates have been refreshed with optional variants. First Person now includes first-person rendering features for independent field of view, scale, and lighting. A full character has also been implemented, no more floating arms, along with a custom control rig to handle warping to a first-person view. The basic first-person template has had weapons removed to reduce initial content when loading the lightweight first-person template, and includes two different variant options. The first is a horror variant. This version added a torch to the player pawn, an example map that demonstrates best practice when lighting dark environments, a sprint mechanic with associated UI, and a flickering light setup. The second is a shooter variant. This version added a range of weapon pickups, a range of bullet types, multiple AI opponents, ammo UI, and an example map as well. The base third-person template has remained mostly unchanged, but has been extended in the combat, side-scroller, and platform variants. The combat variant includes simple hand combat, combo attacks, AI, in-world health bar UI, and an example combat map. The side-scroller variant provides a fixed camera example, constrained plane setup, pickups, single-sided and drop-through collision interaction, fixed-to-floor and locked camera examples, and an example side-scrolling map. Then lastly, the platformer variant has a dash mechanic, wall jump, and example platforming map for testing out those moves. The base top-down template has remained mostly unchanged, but has been extended in the strategy and twin stick variants. The strategy variant now includes drag-selected AI characters, simple character interactions, a roof transition effect, simple AI move-to examples, and an orthographic camera setup. The twin stick template has simple AI opponents, a bomb and shoot mechanic, simple arena map, along with score and multiplier UI. The base vehicle template has been updated. Now, the vehicle templates are made up of separate static mesh pieces connected to a skeleton. We've also simplified the vehicle materials and textures. There are two blueprints available that show how to spawn static and spline meshes, but these will be replaced with PCG once it's fully released. Additionally, runtime virtual textures has been enabled and set up for each map in the project. The first variant, Off-Road, features an open-world exploration map, an off-road all-wheel drive vehicle example, spline roads, and H-Lod structure. Though keep in mind, H-Lods have not been built to save memory. Next up is the time trial variant, which includes a simple track map, gate structure setup to mock traversal through a lap along with time and best time UI. In addition to new template variants, shared content between variants has also been updated as well. For level prototyping, meshes have been updated to nanite quality, as well as a door, jump pad, and physics dummy have been added under interactables. Our classic heroes Manny and Quinn have both had materials and textures optimized, plus have been provided a new set of animations such as unarmed, armed, dash, combat, hit, death, and so on. A new input pack has been added that standardizes input across templates, demonstrates mobile touch input setup, and added a widget touch thumbstick. Then lastly, we've added more weapons with optimized textures and materials, such as a pistol, rifle, and grenade launcher. Templates can now be created from the new project screen. Use the variant drop-down menu to select which variant you want to use per template. If you prefer a more basic option, choose None to use a lightweight version of the template. Try them out and let us know what you think. Did you hear? Starting now, for any Epic Games Store payments we process, developers will pay a 0% revenue share on their first $1 million in revenue per app per year, and then our regular 88/12% revenue share when they earn more than that. Also, we are releasing a new feature enabling developers to launch their own web shops hosted by the Epic Games Store. These web shops can offer players out-of-app purchases as a more cost-effective alternative to in-app purchases. With new legal rulings in place, developers will be able to send players from games to make digital purchases from web shops on any platform that allows it, including iOS in the European Union and United States. There's never been a better time to see if Epic services are right for you. Join your local chapter to grow, learn, and be inspired. Here are upcoming events to check out. Now, let's dig into this week's incredible community spotlights. Where Crimson Fell by Caro Goodbrand is a stunning environment scene that is impactful in its simplicity. Using a combination of hand-sculpted textures as well as some clever shaders, such as this world-aligned barnacle, we are genuinely immersed into what feels like just a snapshot of a full world. In the artist's own words, "The sea drank their voices long ago, yet the wind still catches on their crimson. Tattered but defiant. What kind of people built towards the sun, only to be buried by the tide? I have not found the heart of this place, but I feel it, watching." Check out the full piece on their ArtStation. Jester by Reza Abkari is a 3D rendition of the concept art Reign of Dystopian by Jovi Zhao. This vibrant character piece was created as a final project during the advanced term at Think Tank Training Center, developed over 16 weeks of focused creative exploration. More than just an assignment, it was a playful yet ambitious dive into blending professional experience with personal R&D, all while experimenting with new tools and advanced techniques. The goal? To bring a game-ready character to life. One that not only stays true to its original concept, but also reflects a bold, stylized vision of what's possible. The look and feel were inspired by a whimsical painterly charm of South of Midnight and the enchanting atmosphere of the cancelled Project Black, capturing a rich mix of stylized realism and folklore flair. Built in Unreal Engine 5, the final shots sparkle with moody lighting and lush environment details courtesy of the Quixel Megascan's Dark Ruins pack. Turnarounds and beauty renders polished with the flipped normals portfolio setup round out this dynamic showcase of both technical skill and artistic joy. You can check out the full project as well as breakdowns on their ArtStation page. Flower Town by Chia Severely Young is a cheerful and whimsical environment scene that radiates charm and sunshine, capturing the essence of a cozy, stylized world. Created over the course of 5 months using Unreal Engine 5, the project showcases a thoughtful blend of artistry and technique. Built with modular pieces and enriched by hand-painted plant textures, it brings a vibrant landscape to life with clever touches like in-engine hue variations for lush varied vegetation. A mix of custom textures crafted in Substance Designer adds depth and detail, tying the scene together with a polished storybook feel. From its playful design to its homey atmosphere, this piece is a joyful celebration of imaginative world building and creative dedication. Thanks for watching this week's news and community spotlights. I'll catch you next week.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside Unreal, a show where we learn, explore, and celebrate everything Unreal. I am your host, Tina, and today we're going to be talking about the incredible project, Echoes of the End. If you haven't seen anything about it, that's okay, because we're going to play the trailer for you right now.
I used to swear by my father's oath to protect the wards is to protect our people, and if it claims our lives, what's one life lost for the sake of the many?
And now, What do you swear by today?
The only one that matters is my brother. And I will kill the people who took him from me.
Rin, take my hand! Rin!
I hear not the clamor of conquerors. The pestilence must be purged.
Your father was right about one thing. The wards are breaking. And should we fail, it may spell another end.
PlayStation.
Oh my gosh, absolutely incredible. Okay, I'm gonna not freak out. And we're gonna get into introducing our guests for today's show. So, first up, how about Ed? Let's start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yep, so my name's Ed. I'm an environment artist here at Myrkur Games, and my responsibility was bringing this fantasy world that we have, this world of Ima, into life. And I'm really excited to be here and just talk about everything that all the processes that we follow to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Very excited to have you here. And next up, Haldor, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, sure. My name is Halldór. I am the CEO and game director here at Myrkur Games. Of course, been working on Echoes, founded the studio 2016. And then we got into the idea for this game kind of started forming in 2017. And then the ball just kind of kept rolling. And here we are.
Awesome. Well, very excited to have you both here and to talk about this freaking incredible project that you have put together. There's a lot of really, really cool tech that was put into it from behind the scenes, and that's mainly what we're going to be focusing on today is some of the process that you went to build the world that we just saw in that trailer. But I figured I'd maybe hand it over in case you wanted to talk a little bit more just about what the project is, maybe some of the key things we're going to talk about today, and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, I can at least shed some just general light on the game. The trailer, of course, hopefully kind of gave a lot of answers already. But it is definitely a story-driven action adventure, and it's set in the world of Ima, as Ed mentioned, which is a new fictional world that we've devised here at Myrkur Games. And we follow the story of a main protagonist whose name is Rin, and her main companion throughout the game called Abram. And we kind of dive into this new setting, and the game is kind of based off a few key pillars or a few key offerings. Combat is definitely a big part of the game, both melee and magic combat. We have lots of humanoids, creatures, bosses, over 20 different enemy types, and epic bosses, of course. But also we have a lot of puzzles in the game. It's more puzzle-centric than maybe other games, or not puzzle-centric. That's not entirely correct, but we do have puzzles, and we do have platforming and a bit of exploration as well. So it's got everything that it takes to make an adventure come together, and hopefully we'll be able to unveil a lot more in the game in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It sounds like there's a little bit of something for everyone in there, is what I'm hearing. So
Hopefully, yeah.
amazing. Well, the main thing, like I said earlier, that we're going to talk about today is the creation of the world specifically for this project. Because there's so much that went into it. And I would love, again, to hand it over, but a main thing that I wanted to talk about, of course, is the fact that you scanned in a bunch of locations from Iceland, and that served as kind of the baseline for some of the key locations, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. When we started the project, this is back in Unreal Engine 4 days, of course, and things have changed. So I'm going to wind the clock back a little. But as we were as we were coming coming to make the concept for the game and kind of coming up with the ideas of what we wanted to do, it was pretty early on when we were kind of realizing, because we're a 40-person studio, and we're not a big team. And as you saw in the trailer, we have a lot of different location, a lot of different mechanics. So really, the challenge for us right at the start was trying to figure out, with the trajectory of where everything's headed. This includes Unreal Engine, which played a huge pivotal role in all of this, but also photogrammetry, motion capture, just general technology behind it. We were kind of seeing, what was possible for a medium-sized or small-sized team to do. And we certainly, many in the industry saw this kind of early indicator with games like Hellblade, which I think set a big precedents for a lot of what was to come. But we were kind of looking into specifically photogrammetry as a way to craft the world of the game and the characters of the game, and really kind of employ that as much as we could, because there's just no way otherwise for us to kind of pull off this skill. And when we started, we were really just experimenting with phone cameras and whatever small cameras we could afford, and literally just scanning rocks here around in Reykjavik, because we're based in Iceland, and just around the block, and just experimenting with his technology from the get-go. And we were so amazed with what we could do with it, that we just kind of, it was a big moment for us to realize, what we could do with it, and we really wanted to push it. And from there, we started to, really scan around. We started to scan a few locations in Iceland, and we kind of realized, as we were making the game, we wanted to do something that was also a bit unique, something that was really important to us, and that was to bring Iceland into the game, in terms of the visuals and the backdrop and the world itself. So we kind of went from. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, that was one of the challenges, because like you want to create a fantasy world that sticks to your narrative and the story that you're trying to tell, but at the same time you want to keep that Icelandic vibe and feeling, and you want to have even certain places that people that have been to Iceland or Icelanders can recognize. So that was part of the reason for the whole photo scanning process, is having a bit of Iceland within this fantasy setting. And I think there's a couple of really cool locations that we managed to bring into the game that a lot of people who have seen pictures of being to Iceland, they will instantly recognize. So we're quite excited to show that.
Yeah, I also think just to also clarify some things about the game as well, is that the game is not set in obviously any kind of past in Iceland or certain era or age. Iceland is the way that we kind of incorporate in the game. I often like to draw the comparison of how New Zealand makes for the backdrop of Lord of the Rings in a way. Even though Lord of the Rings is not set in New Zealand, certainly every one of us who's watched those movies and kind of seen it, it's so ingrained in the DNA of what we think Middle Earth look like, and what we think the kind of visual story stage for that franchise is. And we definitely wanted to incorporate Iceland into that, but make sure that we crafted our own world and a new fantasy adventure, which is what really excited us about getting into this. But in terms of the specific locations, when we started making this, we were working with photogrammetry. A thing that Ed touched on as well is that we wanted to really try to get, not only the visual style of Iceland in the game, and really kind of get the landmarks. We also wanted to make sure that we had real recognizable locations, and that meant that we had to look at kind of the most famous spots in Iceland, spots that we know are what when people visit here they really want to see and kind of have on their buckets list and stuff like that. And so we put a lot of emphasis on making sure that we could capture those landmarks and get them into the game as accurately as possible, so that it feels as real as it can feel kind of within this fantasy world. And that's how we kind of draw the inspiration.
It was also kind of like a fun challenge because sometimes you would be just walking flying around in the editor trying to like set dress a section, and suddenly you look at the section and go like, wait, the player comes through here, then he has this vista and then goes left. Actually, this is a perfect location for this. So you speak to a level designer and go like, dude, I think I know where to put this part of Iceland. And we kept adding things literally just like that, by like just some of them we knew where we wanted to have them, but some others were literally just like, we need to change these because this is the perfect place. And there's a couple of really cool ones that you'll be able to find around the game.
Yeah, that is awesome. I am curious, so choosing to scan different parts of Iceland for this, obviously, like you said, you were kind of just experimenting with the tech and seeing what was working and all of that. I'm curious if was this always the plan to potentially have this included? Did you attempt to try and make the landscape just in 3D first, and then it felt like photogrammetry was just the right direction to go, or what had you land on that as the end goal there?
So we certainly started with a mix that was, a part scanned, part sculpted. But I think as time went along and we were kind of putting the environments together, we started leaning a lot more heavily into the scans. We realized that we couldn't really hand sculpt as much as we could with a 40-person team, but we also realized that transferring very, very realistic style means that we have to be picky about where we put that time into, and most of that is instead spent on handmade assets and different stuff like that. But then we also use often photoreal textures and stuff like that to kind of bring that back into the real world. So it was a mix for sure. We kind of knew from the first day though what we wanted to use photogrammetry, because there was a spark for us envisioning a project like this and being able to pull it off. But I don't think it dawned up on us until we entered like heavy production, that we were like, okay, we need to redo 2 full levels because this is a mistake. We just need to go all in for more realistic, more scanned stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And scans, obviously, they are real life assets that we bring into the game. So there's a limitation to that because you cannot control how a rock is going to land on the ground or how a mountain is going to be made. So we definitely had to do a lot of work to create assets to fit our gameplay needs or to art direct them to exactly what we need them to be. And also, because we're relying on scans a lot, we wanted to keep a consistency on quality between the assets that we create and the scans, which have obviously like a super high quality because you are capturing real life. So that was also a challenge that we had to face when creating like a heavy photo scanned game.
Yeah, I also want to chime in here that Unreal Engine 5 also changed things for us a bit, because we started in Unreal Engine 4 where, the fidelity, just by definition, we didn't have nanite and we didn't have those things. So we were down-resing our scans really a lot to get into the game. So the line was a bit muddier when we were kind of in early production. But as we got into Unreal Engine 5 and we realized that we could kind of just re-import the assets we scanned already and get them in much higher fidelity, that also meant that everything else had to follow. So everything that we had made before that in terms of hand scanning, in terms of hand sculpting and making, we just completely did away with. But we were happy with that decision in the end, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's stunning. And even from the videos, what you had to work with to start with is also just beautiful and perfect for a fantasy setting in the first place. Yeah. I love, even in chat, there's a couple of folks that are like, is this even actually Earth that I'm looking at right now? So it's the perfect.
And that's actually another point that I really wanted to dive into as well, because Iceland is so diverse. I mean, we're looking at aerial photography and videos from Iceland, from us scanning around and stuff like that, and we'll dive into the assets in a bit. But I at least wanted to kind of talk about one point as well, which is was a big decision for us when we were making the game, is that we decided to do the game. Like, if you saw the trailer, it was a bunch of different biomes, bunch of different environments. And again, I just must remind you that we were a 40-person team. And with a 15-hour game or so, depending on how you measure it, we decided to split up the game into 10 chapters very early on. And then the big decision for us was that we really wanted each chapter to feel like a different biome, not wholly within Iceland, but a visual style in and of itself. So not only did we decide to bring in Iceland, but we also wanted to bring in, because Iceland has so many faces, as you can see in some of these videos in the back, and of course more than that. But we really wanted to make sure that we kind of feel that diversity. And when you're going through the game, through each chapter, you really do feel like you're always stepping into a new episode or new kind of breath of fresh air, sorry. So that was a big part of the decision. And that was a huge challenge on top, because making, so many different biomes was a huge task, a huge undertaking for the team, which was just super powered by the fact that we had ready access to Iceland here around the studio, and had photogrammetry as well. But the interesting thing is that I would say about 50% of the game is probably scanned within a 200-kilometer radius from the studio. So it's not even far out. You just get that diversity all around us. So even that glacier is only about 200 something kilometers away from the studio.
Oh, the humblest brag I've ever heard.
I often get asked, like, are we promoting Iceland or the video game?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's a bit of both.
But I think that kind of, leads us into the topic at hand that I'm sure a lot of people would be curious about, is some of the bigger challenges. Because while we scanned all different sizes and shapes of assets, everything from, ground materials to small rocks and cliff faces, all the way up to the bigger challenges, which was we scanned whole mountains into the game. And then, of course, we scanned the glacier that we have on screen on game as well. And I think that's, for everybody tuning in here, is going to be what's most interesting to dive into, because that was a huge technical challenge for us and a huge thing to bring into the game. But it was just so true to what we wanted to do, to bring real locations like a film set into the game and make it real, because that's the best way to do it, is just to take reality and put it in the game. So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think with that, if we can tune ourselves into some footage from the asset creation, we can start diving into the capture process and just talking about how we did it. So the glacier itself, the area that we captured for the game is about 4 square kilometers. It is something called a skriðjökull in Icelandic, which means that the glacier crawls forward and moves and carves out the earth, and that's what makes the valley shapes in Iceland. And this is a part of a glacier called Sólheimajökull. There'll be a test for all of this later.
Oh no, let me get a pen.
So it is one of the, it's one of the more approachable glaciers in Iceland. So we could drive up and capture this. And of course, in the previous footage, you could see us kind of walking up. And this whole piece is scanned with only a couple of drones. So we had to have some pretty long range on those. And actually, in the footage that we're seeing right now, all the white dots, for those unfamiliar, are actually individual images captured of the glacier from the drone. So you're literally looking at the flight path above the glacier from home base, onto hovering over the glacier. And we had to combat a lot of things. First, when we drove out, we really thought this just wouldn't work. We were just kind of like, let's try, let's see if this even works. So we weren't sure how photogrammetry was going to work with such a specular material, with a glacier that's mostly white. Like, is it even going to come together? But this thing was scanned basically in 2 major trips. And this is using DJI drones. And we actually did not scan it with photos. We scanned it with videos, which is also how we scanned the mountain that we'll go into later in this. So what we typically do is that we set up the drones. First, you got to make sure that the weather's absolutely correct, because if it's sunny, if it's raining, it's all going to mess it up. So we had to have a bit of luck. And the thing that you don't think about is that the glacier is so tall and so big that you start running into troubles with fog and clouds as well. But we had to fly them up. And like I said, it was a two-day capture. So we were flying all day long, just along the glacier, getting parts and segments, and then using visual landmarks to coordinate between the different drones as we were capturing it. The tricky thing, it sounds like when you look at it like this, it's like, oh, you just fly in straight lines and you look at the GPS to track the drone. But when you're seeing a glacier and you're scanning 4 square kilometers of white and black, and everything looks kind of homogeneous from that perspective, it's actually super tricky to kind of mind map where you've been and what you have to capture and if you got all angles of it and everything like that. But we basically treated the glacier like a ground texture, how you would scan a ground texture, so we don't have to go too close. But the process of getting this in, the footage of the drones was quite a lot, and the images that we generate this mesh with, or this point cloud with, sorry, was around 4,000 to 5,000 photos. And I will say that for us, the time between we got this GAN and the time we actually got a working in engine was about 5 or 6 months of just failing to render this until we got it right.
The whole process of going through scanning something as big as this is quite convoluted, and we have a lot of learning to do when scanning all these things as well. So in the video that's playing right now, you can see when the video begins, you can see a dense point cloud, is what we call it. So once you set all the pictures in reality capture, which is the tool that we used in this case, you basically let reality capture process all the pictures, and it finds kind of like points in common between all the pictures and create this dense cloud that basically represents what the mesh that's going to come out is going to be. So because the glacier was scanned in different times and stuff, like we had to use some points, like manually place some points of reference to align all these pictures into like as detailed a dense cloud as possible, and then we converted that into a mesh. When we did that, we realized, like, obviously there was a lot of trial and error. So you would leave the mesh processing, walk away, come back, and realize that it failed or it doesn't look like you want it. So you had to play it again. So it took like around 12 hours to just process the dense cloud itself. And then when we processed it and we created the mesh, we realized that it was way too high poly for any computer in the universe to handle. So we had to go back to the basis and kind of just split the mesh in two, which actually makes a lot of sense for us, because when you are developing a game, you need to understand that as much as you can fly around in the editor, at the end of the day, you need to go to the player level. What's the player going to see? What's going to be important for the player, right? So in our case, for our game, the way the player is going to see the glacier is always going to be from the front. So we split the glacier in two pieces, front and back, so we could give more density to the front of the glacier and just have the back more literally as a landscape or background. And make that easier for us to process. So we cut it in two, and after doing that, we kind of like brought it to Blender, where we remeshed it and re-unwrapped the whole thing to be to have a bit more of an optimized UV map, and also for the next step. So basically, when you're scanning something so big, although it would be amazing to be able to just use the pictures that you take from the glacier and just use those textures, if you want to get slightly closer to the glacier, either you have like a 16K texture for the whole thing, which is obviously not sustainable, or you need to have a different approach. So the way we did it is we created a mask out of the albedo of the glacier, which was pretty easy because the glacier is basically black or white. So we use that to create a mask, and then we use that mask within Unreal Engine to create different masks, different textures within each side of the mask. So we had like a ice texture and like a dark gravel texture, and we basically we can crank up the texel density of this asset thanks to that, because you can just dial up those textures, and you can have a mask that is literally like a 2K or a 4K, and is plenty for the whole glacier.
I believe we have a video of exactly what you're talking about, Ed, if we can pull that up.
Yes, actually, there is a video somewhere. I think it's the in-engine video. Yes.
Oh yeah, so this is
this you can see the glacier already in engine. You can see our amazing protagonist Rin just walking around, and this is kind of how it looks like. So as you can see, obviously the front of the glacier is what's closest to us, so it was really relevant that it was looking as shiny and amazing as possible. And after this, there's a couple of like fly-throughs where you can also see, the glacier from a bit more up close and how the texture kind of holds up. So yeah, that was basically the process that we followed for the big scans, things as big as mountains or like 4 kilometer square glaciers.
The one thing that's really hard to convey in anything like this is just the sheer scale of it. Like if there was a person standing on one of those, they would be really tiny. Like this thing is just absolutely ginormous. When we were scanning, there were people walking on the top of the glacier doing like hiking and trips and stuff like that, and they would just disappear after a while. Like it'd just be so tiny. And the size of these, like the vertical size of these, is also just absolutely huge. And you can just imagine how far away even Rin is here, because we tried to keep the scale somewhat accurate here when we placed it in engine, but it's just ginormous. I believe you also have a video of the material, once we apply the detailed materials as well.
I am looking through it, but I don't know if it's in the list of videos that we sent actually.
Maybe it's in the
Materials.
I
might have
have
slipped
found
through.
it.
Oh, you have found it? Nice, awesome.
I have share it forward.
Very nice.
And I believe also I'm just gonna see if we can get these up on stream. There's a few extra videos here that we should be able to pull up. Maybe it might take a minute.
Yeah, awesome. We'll get those
Nice.
up as soon as we can for sure. But I
Sounds
do
good.
think that, like, yeah, even from this one, like you said, trying to understand the sheer scale of
It's really,
just,
yeah.
and this is only half of the overall glacier, like you said,
Yep.
right, that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, it's actually just a section that's coming out of it. So the glacier, part of the glacier is then further up and behind this, but this is the one that's kind of crawling forward into the valley, which we really want to get for the game. So this is a big vista point for one of the chapters. And this kind of, here we have the texture
This is
video
the
as
one.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. So in here, basically, you can see like the different masks that we subtracted from the albedo of the glacier, and also some of them we handmade. So you can see, obviously, glacier. Like when you think of a glacier, you think of like a like see-through ice kind of thing, but it's actually it's got a lot of like dirt piled up on it from like years and years, and in order to convey that, we literally just used this mask that we could control contrast and blending, and then two different materials with dark gravel and ice, and just tweaked it until we had a result as close to the original as possible. So you can see me there just playing around back and forth with the parameters of the materials.
Finding the right balance. I get that.
This was a really fun process for sure.
Yeah.
This was. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Just super quickly, because you mentioned that, of course, maybe you can play around with things a little bit so that it also fits your game. Were you trying to keep these locations as close to the originals as possible, or did you give yourselves a certain range of creative freedom to make sure that it might fit for what you needed it for, if it had to vary at all?
So we tried. Oh, go ahead, Ed.
Go ahead. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. It definitely varies. I think, for something like this, when we really wanted to achieve some of the more iconic locations, we definitely kept them pretty accurate to the real thing. But of course, we decided against scanning, for example, those exact mountains on the left and right of the glacier. So I think that's a good difference of like where we deviate from where the real is. But the mountains that are in the level that we saw earlier that are there are still scanned mountains from Iceland. So it's not like, we're kind of mixing and matching. And I think also when you go through the game, if you've ever been in Iceland, you're going to be a bit confused as to like, wait, so the glacier is on the right, but this other famous location is on my left. And I know in reality, they're actually 100 kilometers apart. So we do kind of that in terms of crafting the different scenarios and just making sure that it isn't Iceland 1-to-1, but we bring those iconic locations that should be quite recognizable for anyone who's been here, and whether that's the Glacier or other locations. Which is actually maybe just a good topic switch into the big mountain that we scanned. If that's a good topic point, unless you had other points you wanted to cover as well, Ed.
No. I think we can move into Kishkuet.
Super cool. So this was another one of the giants that we scanned for the game in its entirety. And this is a famous mountain called Kishkuet, which will be on the test as well.
Oh, no.
I fail every time. Don't worry about it.
But here I am flying the drone. So this mountain is really famous. It's used in Game of Thrones as well. If anyone has seen that shot, but in other media too. But it's a very striking mountain in reality when you see it, and it's got this very famous silhouette. And you can't actually hike to the top of it. It's sheer, but you can do it. We opted not to, just use our drones. But this mountain, not too dissimilar from the Glacier, was captured with 2 different drones on 2 different sets of days. And on the first day, just before the stream started, we were talking about technical failures and what could happen. And we ran into one of those on the first day where everything seemed to fail. And then the weather was also playing tricks on us. But as you can see in that video, the problem that we were dealing with actually was low-hanging clouds. You can see that the very top of the mountain there is being just covered in clouds. And that's the tricky thing. Like, you have to get the perfect scenario for this. So we actually had to, capture the bottom halves of the mountain and then wait for hours on end just to get a window. And we ended up like right at the end of the day getting like literally 20 minutes to do the entire top in one go, like one fail attempt. It was our last battery on the drone. It was the last like possible space in the SD card. Like, it was just like, it was.
This was the shot.
Yeah, we did not want to drive a third day for this mountain. We were already, sitting around 8 hours waiting for weather isn't the best thing.
That's not the highlight of your day? What do you mean?
No. But effectively, the way that we divided this mountain up is that we had one drone pilot, which is me, on this side of the mountain, and then the other drone pilot would go on the other end of the mountain. And then we coordinated the edges of which we would kind of stop and start our scans and making sure that we got a bit of overlap with each other. And then we did pretty close flybys of the mountain going up and down, also in video, also in 4K, and then picking the best screenshots from that. The trouble that we ran into with this scan, once we actually started processing it, is that the lighting detail was slightly different on each end. So we had a lot of issues with alignment within reality capture, just because the visuals wouldn't 100% overlap. But we actually, first we tried to adjust the images slightly to eyeball what we thought would be a good match and see if we could get in a hole. But this is one of those where computer just said no. And what we ended up actually doing was rendering each half of the mountain separately and just doing them as separate scans, and then going in manually with sculpting and just finding the exact seam between the mountains, and then literally going in meter by meter on the mountain and making sure that it was absolutely seamless and we captured all the detail.
Yeah. And with this mountain, we follow exactly the same process as with the Glacier, as we created masks out of the albedo, which also helped kind of like blending both sides, and then just styled some textures on top, so we can get as close as we possibly want to the mountain without losing any texel density of detail.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing that it's maybe often overlooked when people are getting into photogrammetry as well, is that you're not going to get all the information that you need out of the scan. You're not going to get the roughness from the scan. It's going to give you the 3D model and the albedo texture. But other things you have to work on yourself. So thankfully, we could use some color information from this scan to determine where the rocks are and where the kind of rolling hills are. And we could assign, pick out that color and assign that different roughness for the map, so we could get that kind of good-looking asset within the engine finally. But this one also took us a while to process. I think it was a few months of just kind of working with the engines and getting it to look good and getting it in until we kind of finally had it. So it was a big challenge. But
I
literally,
imagine. I was going to ask between the two, which one took longer or did you think was more difficult, the
the
mountain or the
glacier,
glacier?
the glacier,
Mm.
hands down, it was such a challenge. Just the sheer size of it and just making it all work. I still remember the day where we actually got the object in engine. It was like, I don't know, 12 in the evening. We were just hammering at it. We just determined to get it in. And we just finally got it. And it was just like, whoa, okay. And because the excitement is we get to put this in our game. Like that's the excitement when you pull it off. You go like, we did it. But overall, I would say, yeah, the Glacier turned out to be more tricky in terms of just both capturing, processing, and getting it to really work as a game asset within a level. But the funny thing is that with the Glacier especially, we had initially scanned it for a specific location in the game, but we very late into production decided to put it in the place where it is observed now in the game. So it was actually not originally planned where it is in the game, but we just felt like it was such a good fit there. So we tried it and upset everybody in production.
Yeah, that's basically is what we were discussing earlier. Like in this project, we had a lot of like brainstorming throughout the production of the project itself, and it was a lot of like, I really think this is gonna be great. So you put it there and you show it, and then it looks great, and it's like, now I can't unsee it, so we have to do it. You know, like so you kind of just went through the motions to like make sure it was ending up there, but. Yeah, it's. I think the Glacier is a view that a lot of players are just gonna stop there and take in for a second and then move on. I really hope so. At least that we really liked it.
That's it's. I was just going to say that's such a hilarious thing you mentioned because games are such an iterative process. Like it's a complete lie if you have like a complete blueprint and you go in and you come out with a game and your blueprint is what you set out to do. Like you'd end up in the direction and indication, but things change along the way. But it's hilarious what I was saying as well is like so oftentimes when we're in production, we have this great idea and then like I said, we can't then see it. And like everybody's like, I don't want to do this. This is going to take up vital time. This is going to be tricky. But then everybody sees it and everybody goes, okay, I'm going to stay a bit long today, get this done. Like this is so much better. And one of the funny stories as well is that for the trailer that we were just looking at, that reveal shot that we have of the city that I will not talk too much about was not there originally in the game. But as we were kind of concepting it, we realized that we really wanted you to kind of see it from this angle in the level and experience it from that angle. So we actually moved the level again with big protests from production right at pretty late in the process, and we just realized that's going to be a much better fit. But that just goes to show like this is all team kind of take initiative and really wanted to make sure that we nail the end result and just get it right.
Yeah,
for sure.
We have a team with a ton of passion for the project that we're working on, and it really shows. Like there's another fun one that you can also see in the trailer. You can see these huge, like almost crystal-like formation that we call words. And originally the words were like human size. Like they were as tall as a person, and we were building the scene, and we were like looking, all of us just kind of like looking at one screen, and going like, "There's something here. I just can't put my finger on it." And our concept artist, which is absolutely amazing, he was like, "Scale it up," and my colleague were like, "Okay." It was like, "No, more. Okay, more." Until it became this huge mountain, and we're like, Aldor is never going to prove this. He's never going to prove
getting a very nervous call from the guys, just going, "We have to show you something. Please be positive about it," or something. Like it was some message like that, and I was okay. What have they changed?
Before we share the screen, the first thing that we said is like, "Okay, hear us out." And
be open-minded for the next 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly, and it just ended up being in the game. But there was a lot of things like that throughout the whole process. But yeah, like going back to the topic, because we start talking about
the main
like
topic,
random game stuff. Like we'll go off.
We can talk about that all day.
We scanned a ton of things, a ton of huge assets, but we also scanned smaller assets because it was very important to keep also a consistency of how the biome looks like. So in here you can see some of the captures from in reality capture, and we went a bit further. If you look at the next picture, you're able to see kind of like we actually created asset gyms with like loads of photoscan assets from loads of different biomes within Iceland. As Haldor said, like you take two steps in any direction in Iceland and you find a different biome to the one where you were. So which is a great opportunity for us environment artists to kind of like find exactly what we're looking for and create as many biomes as we possibly want. But this also creates kind of like a challenge, because at the end of the day, we're making a game and the game needs to be able to occupy a certain disk space that is not going to just blow your computer or just have make you this delete all pictures that you have in there. So the way that we decided to go for it is with this. So we created a masking system, same as with the Glacier and with Kishkuet, and we created different masks, ambient occlusion, curvature, and like different custom masks that we created. And those masks allowed us to tile different materials that then we can use to grab the same mesh and apply it in different biomes, making it look completely different. So we have some scans that we use extensively throughout all our biomes, but it's difficult to see because we create like setup materials to have like moss on top or snow on top or different textures for them. In the next video, you can also see that in bigger assets like a mountain, where depending on you find the mountain in the game, you will see it with a different outfit. And all of this is thanks to the mask that we took either from the albedo or from the mask that we manually created in Substance Painter. But we did exactly the same thing with some of the mega scans. So in the next picture, you can see a cool ice waterfall mega scans that you can find in the Quixel marketplace. But when we saw this ice one, we were working on a different kind of level, and we were like, I think we can turn this into something that will fit this level. So if you go to the next picture, we turned this into actually the opposite, which is like a magma
Perfection.
thing. And it was as easy as literally just grab an ambient occlusion mask and just place the magma on that ambient occlusion and just have like a dry magma texture on the rest. So we just had to be very creative on that regard. And then on the next picture, you can see that that mask system we also use on our handmade assets. So this is an asset that we just sculpted the classical way. And we have the R mask, which is an inverted ambient occlusion. The green mask is a curvature and some extra detail that we added. And the blue mask is what we normally use for like some overlay color or material or something like that. So on the next picture, you can see how that's implemented into the engine. And we basically just bring the blue mask becomes like a moss on top. And then we use the green mask to create like some brightness on the edges as worn out stone and stuff like that. To really hone in the age or the how ancient these mechanisms that you're going to be working with really are. But obviously, we have loads of different systems to create meshes and big and small. So one of the systems that really got us out of a lot of trouble in this game and allowed us to really art direct assets that looked almost photoscanned is the displacement system. So we came up with this fairly early on, and we used it a ton, where we basically just grabbed and created like a basic shape in Blender, and we added a subdivision on it to have as much triangle count as possible, and then we applied a decimation with like either a material that we scanned or that we created or that we brought from Megascans. We then decimated that into a poly count that kind of made sense for us. We normally try to keep each piece below the 200K triangles, which seems to work really well for Nanite. And after that, we basically transfer the normals of the original mesh without decimation into the mesh itself. So then it can work better when you apply a texture. The normals don't look so harsh. And with this system, we created whole kits, modular kits, with different pieces that if you set the UVs from 0 to 1, they actually tile perfectly. And we managed to bring these into the engine and create like some really cool environments like fairly quickly. And it also allows us to iterate, because if you're creating an environment like this, for instance, is the location where you can find all these pieces that we made. But if we were to come to this environment and see like, oh, there's this corner where there's an actual gameplay bit, and we need this bit to be bigger, we need this bit to be custom made. The only thing you need to do is go back to your modeling engine, copy the modifiers over to the new piece that you have made, and export. So it's kind of procedural and really quick to make. So it worked really well for us.
Quote unquote asterisk there.
Quote unquote. There's still some handmade stuff to do, but it speed up our workflow a ton.
One thing that's maybe cool to talk about as well is the one of the other locations that we recreated in the engine, but did it through a bit of a different workflow, which is the Black Sand Beach. If we're able to put up the reference for that one.
Yeah, so that's the first video in the folder.
Yeah.
We'll find it.
We'll find it.
We'll track it down. There it is.
Perfect.
So that's the real location.
Yeah, that's the real location, and that's the game recreation of it. So this is one of the most popular spots in Iceland for people to visit and see. It's a very, very unique and very special location that looks really good. It's actually quite dangerous in real life because you can get riptides, so you really have to stay away from the water. But this is one of those locations that, I think it's a good illustration of how we wanted to make sure to pay homage to the locations here, the real life locations, but how we then twist them for the use of our own game. So as you can see, there's a tower on top of that hill that, of course, is not there in real life, and that little cave, which goes nowhere in real life, but of course in a video game it goes somewhere. But this is just one of those places that was not like, we did scan a few bits and pieces from the beach, but this is one of those where we did not end up scanning the entire big pieces, but actually, I believe it was Ed, who's in the call, who actually made the assembly for this. So maybe you can just talk a little bit about the process.
Yeah, the map itself looked completely different to what this was. But when I was addressing, I was like, I was not really feeling what I was putting in there, and it was like I think we had like a quarry or something like that looking in this corner, and I just called a level designer from the team that's also wonderful, and I just told him like, I think I have something that we can do, and together we kind of worked to move around the white box to be able to fit, which we didn't really have to do much work for, because the location was kind of perfect for it, and in here we used most of the assets that this is made of are custom made. We did scan from the Black Sand Beach some of the rocks and stuff that you can find that we placed around in the beach. But most of these assets are custom made to fit exactly to be able to use them in other places, because we use some of the rocks that you have in there at the front, we use them in other caves and other locations. But we have some photoscan basalt as well as in there. So it's kind of like, I think this is probably one of the best locations to really see how the workflow that we followed, because it is a mix of just custom made stuff, trying to look as mega scans as possible, like with the displacement system that we've seen before, and actual mega scans or custom scans to bring this place to life.
Yeah, I mean, this is the perfect example, I feel like, of seeing how things translate, how they can translate pretty one-to-one from reality into how you integrated it into the game. But there was a great question from chat that I want to ask you, because I feel like it's kind of relevant, especially looking at this here. Do you plan these locations out to be like this? Do you block them out beforehand? I know you mentioned like the Glacier, for example, ended up moving, so that's open to finding wherever it lives best. But did you have a general idea of how the overall landscape would look? Was that blocked out, or was it more of just a move pieces around and find where it feels right?
No, I think I can take this one because I remember just looking at the Google Maps with pins for a while trying to figure out. So because I think the best way to kind of answer this is that we definitely had, with the prompt that we wanted to represent a lot of different Icelandic biomes, and with the prompt that we wanted to drive out and scan and get these things in the game and get unique assets that other games don't have to kind of make for the unique draw of the game, we planned almost in certain ways in inverse. So we would have an idea or a very rough block out of a level, and before it was kind of, you could see a landscape out of it, and we would kind of look and think about that and think about what biome could be a better fit for that. And it's not also like the game is scanned in one trip. So we're actually continuously scanning through many summers, adding scans because it takes such a while to get it all. And we have so many different scans that, we would kind of lean into biomes, and we try to pick areas once we, early in production, once we had settled on like, okay, this level is supposed to be this type of biome, we would then, over the entire duration of that level being made, be like, oh, we grabbed ground assets and big cliff assets, but no rock assets. So we got to drive on Friday and get those. So it's literally like that. We just, be like, oh, we need cliffs. Those cliffs we're seeing on screen. I remember, we're making the levels, and you have flat landscape and you have big mountains, and you need some player gates so the player can't jump out of the level. And the best way to do that is some cliffs sometimes. So we go, okay, we look at Google Maps, we drop the pin in, and we look around the 360 camera and be like, that's a 2-hour drive. Let's set off 8 on Wednesday and get it. And it's super quick. That's the beauty of this. It's like we go out, we get the scans, and they are in the level in 1 to 2 days. And we might have 10 new scans from one trip. So it really just, the biomes come really quick through this process. But I hope that answers your question in terms of, it's not that we map them specifically out, but we did have a general idea going in for some levels. Like some levels we knew they were going to be, this is going to be set inside a volcano, which is the opening shot. I was thinking through if I'm spoiling anything, but the opening shot of the trailer, you can see like there's a level that's set there, and that in that case, we knew from day one, but for others, we kind of adapted as we went.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that still gives you that level of creative freedom, like we were talking about a few times before, of, well, the plan was this, but it's not exactly working out this way, and that's okay. We'll figure out where it fits in better.
I can also maybe just tack onto this that the bigger vistas, some of those more iconic spots that we scanned, for example, when we scanned Kishkuet, the big mountain, that is the case of we've made the level and we have yet to decide on the exact vista. So sometimes the vistas can come last because we're building the level first. We know there's supposed to be a mountain there, but then we later in the process kind of find what we exactly want and add that in. And that was the case for the Glacier as well, which we ended up moving into a different chapter.
Yeah, that is awesome. Speaking of just like scanning things, there was another question that I thought was interesting as well, where they're wondering if you started with some of the smaller assets that you mentioned and then took the learning from those and applied them to these massive pieces that you brought in later, or did you start with something like the Glacier and then take learnings from there into the smaller pieces?
No, we definitely started with smaller ones. Specifically, we did we kind of went from player path out. So we worry first about the player path and the most closest vicinity from the player, and then we worked kind of into bigger hills and then all the way up to these kind of big boss scans.
That makes sense. I feel like it would be quite the task, maybe, to start with the gigantic mountain.
Yeah.
Not saying you can't, of course, but
That'd be a huge learning process for sure.
Yeah, I feel like you'd kind of just knock your head against the wall for a long time.
But it's also kind of like more of a natural transition, right? Because if you can scan a rock with your phone if you want to, right? But you need more of a setup and be able to check, like, you need the perfect weather and things like that to be able to go into one of these big scans. So it's kind of like a natural transition to go first into small things that you can just find around the studio, like 15 minutes walk, and then just start building from there, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. One last question just about the scans I have for you. If you're fine with sharing, folks are a little curious about some of the hardware that you use. Like they're curious what kind of drone it was that you used, and if you had to interchange drones out, like if you found that some were better than others while going through the process.
So we used two identical DJI Mavic drones. The reason they had to be identical is because we wanted the footage to be as accurate between them as possible. These are not super high-end drones. They can go out about 1.52 kilometers from source of radius. So it's enough to get those big assets. But I think you can get remarkably good results with the DJI Mavics or similar drones. Like Ed said, even with a phone, you can do a lot. But when you're getting into like real production quality, we do for close-up ads and stuff, we do use a bit higher end cameras. But I would say that one thing that's interesting is that we use the drones to scan a lot more than we thought we would. We started mostly with handhelds and kind of typical scanning gear, but as soon as anything became bigger than a bus, we were moving into drones.
Yeah. I feel like that's maybe a slightly less tedious scanning process at that point.
Yeah. The thing is, like, once you have the scan processed, as big as the scan might be, you don't really have to use the big scan as one piece. So what we did a lot is we also fracture the scans into more manageable pieces that we could then blend with the environment a bit better. And obviously, because we have this masked system where we can create like high pixel density on the pieces, we could use some pieces fairly close to the player path without having to worry about them looking blurry or anything like that. So yeah, we have tried to make the most out of every scan that we did, because it takes a while to scan it. So it kind of makes sense that we use it as much as possible to take profit out of all those hours that it takes to process them.
It also helps if you
Sure.
scan one big cliff and you break it down into three pieces. Self-consistency definitely is a thing to worry about when you're scanning in lots of places. And if you have the same cliff, you're going to get very consistent results in the level if you're using, because they're all unique parts, but they share that kind of visual style.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Did we want to dive into mixed workflows and world building parts? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So another thing that we used that was extremely useful for us is Quixel Mixer, because we had, either from mega scans or from around scans, we had a variety of tileable materials that we wanted to use either on scans or on grounds, landscapes, etc. But sometimes you want to have like a combination of both to create blending sections, and Quixel was amazing for that, because it allows us to basically add both materials and then add a blending layer between them that uses the displacement of the materials to kind of like set at which height you wanna mix one with the other. So in this example, we're mixing like a sandy material with a rock one to create one of the climbing decals that we have around the game, and you can see how easy it is for me to create something that looks like super photorealistic, and you can control not just the height but how the both pieces blend between them, if you want something like a harsh line, or if you want more like a soft transition in between the two. So this was key for a couple of our most difficult materials to figure out, because it saves you from having to go into Substance Designer or things like that, and just having to manually do a lot more work that you can just streamline through this. And it's literally, you just change the materials within the same project, and you have a different blend, and you can iterate with that. So so that was really great. And obviously we have, like, in the next picture you can see that we didn't just photo scan everything. We did some handmade classic assets, like this one, for instance, which is an asset that we needed for a specific mechanic that we have in the game, and things that we have that we need to author for a specific mechanic is always best if it's handmade, and obviously we can bring that fantasy touch to it that the megascans don't really have, or megascans or any scan really. And here you can see how we just did like a normal texture pack and custom textures, which is a challenge as well, because as we were mentioning earlier, megascans can have like an extremely high quality, and some of those detailed noise that you only get in reality, right? So creating these assets required us to really fine tune and try to make it as to look as nice as possible when you put them next to a scan. So that was also a really fun part of the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was just
Go
gonna say I just wanted to underline it was a real challenge, because if you pick to work within this kind of super realistic style, everything's got to be at that bar. So it just means that when you're making fantasy elements that don't exist, and even when you kind of have concept for it or anything like that, just pushing it to match the bar can be a real challenge, and something that took us a while, I think, to get really good at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing that really helped us address, which is a feature that's at the moment experimental in Unreal, but we are using it and we're handling it because we think it brings a lot to the game, is landscape displacement with nanite. In this video, you can see how we have like a flat classic landscape, and you can see at glancing angles is even more noticeable how things are really flat. But once you activate the displacement and you give it like a bit of height, it blends so well that you sometimes don't even need extra pieces to add like rocks or anything on the ground, because the texture of the landscape itself, the displacement of the landscape itself, is doing all the work. So we have used this a ton, because when you think about what a player sees in a game, they normally looking down and forward, right? They're looking at the path that they're walking. So it was really important for us to make sure that the ground looked as rich as possible in detail. So this was definitely a game changer for us, being able to bring this. It's not free of headaches, because like something that's experimental, and Real's always been really clear with this, is like, it's experimental, use at your own risk. Like it's not perfect, it's rough around the edges, but we think it's an amazing feature, and having nanite to power it is really, you can really see in the video. It's a very simple video where you can already see how much of a game changer it can be.
It really helps save time as well, just with because if you can paint in those details and get that tessellation, because the typical workflow would be, as we see on the screen, where we have a mesh beneath it and we kind of push it halfway up to create this kind of soft blending, as we see right there. But with the tessellation, we just have to do like way less of that work, and it just allows us to hit that fidelity bar so much quicker, which is a superpower, definitely, in a production where half your screen is ground, as I said.
Yeah, it speeds up the set dressing a ton. That helps a lot. In a small team, when you have to worry about, like, 'cause we wanted to bring as high fidelity as possible to the game. We want the environments to look like as best as we possibly can make them, right? So this helped a ton, because like before we had this, because we didn't have it at the beginning, we didn't really brave it into the project at the beginning. We were like hand placing. I want a rock here. I want a stick here. Oh no, the stick a bit further to the right. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah,
and a lot more foliage painting as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very. It's a very long process. Obviously, any environment artist knows, and this helps a lot, because even if you still have to place some assets to create some breakup and variation in height, especially around the edges of the path and further forward, it's a great starting point, and all the assets that you place for that blending blend so much better, because you're not blending it with a plane that is just gonna flip directly with your thing. Obviously, if you use virtual textures, it makes things easier, but you're actually blending with something that has a variation in height. So it's great to have.
Yeah. I I'm sorry. I'm just blown away by every tiny piece of tech that you have managed to all integrate together to just somehow make this all work. It's like like, and it all has to balance together perfectly, I'm imagining too, because if the large pieces are overly large or don't quite fit in with the style or the sizing, then all of this ground level work won't match up. And I'm just walking through the whole process that you've been
Yeah.
explaining through this, and it sounds like such a balancing act to just to get it right.
It's driven by the standards of like, because if we're introducing cliff sites and walls and stuff like that that have this kind of high fidelity, it really will stick out if we don't introduce that into all, like even the ground and everything. So we just have to drive all the assets into that quality, which may be a good bridge into the models themselves that we use to craft man-made stuff.
Oh yeah, the asset gyms, you mean?
Yeah, and the houses and all that. I believe we have
Yes.
a
So
video if we can pull up the world building with PLAs.
the next one, yeah. So actually, so once you put all these things together, we have scanned some assets, we have created, handmade some assets. Now you need to put them together to build the world. So one thing that we found extremely useful, especially having a small studio and having like a very ambitious project with very large environments that we had to address, is how can we streamline this addressing as much as possible, right? So a new tool that Unreal brought in, which is the pack level actors, was super amazing for us. And in this video, you can see how we basically all of this stuff that he's my colleagues moving around is handmade. So we created all these buildings, and we purposefully left all of these pack level actors kind of bare bones. So a wall or a small tower or things like that. So then we could start using them as kind of pieces of a modular kit and start building with that very, very quickly. So the pros of this is obviously number one is performance, because it instances every single mesh that is inside those pack level actors. So it's a lot quicker to load and render. But number two is, as you can see, you basically just playing around with really good looking pieces. And those pieces are looking so cool because they have, like, some of these packs that my colleague is moving around have 90, 150 different pieces inside, and each piece has up to 200k triangles. So we are moving like millions of triangles and placing them freely in our level in a matter of seconds, and creating like very high fidelity environments with them. So it's the pack level actors is for me like the biggest thing that help us save some time. There's some other things that we use, like for instance, in order to create like as quick a workflow as possible when creating environments. One thing that I really like to do is, because we have different biomes in the game, we have 10 different biomes. I like creating collections, and then in those collections, I wouldn't just place the meshes that I use on that biome, but I would place like the environmental VFX, the materials that I change some of those meshes into, and all sorts. So then you can literally just drag and drop. And also, if you go into the next picture, we created loads of asset gyms. So the asset gyms were also key for us in order to really understand and being able to balance the visual fidelity of every single new piece that we would be adding, and make sure that they work together in the environment that we're trying to create. And thanks to this actor palette plugin that Unreal has, we can open a separate viewport on the side, and we can literally drag and drop from the asset gym into the scene itself, those meshes, so we can just address with them. So that was also like super time saver, and because we can do look vis with the asset gyms with all the pieces together, and kind of like create, okay, these are all the pack level actors that we're going to use, these are all the meshes that we're going to use for the environment. We set the lighting, we realize that, okay, this is the lighting that we want to use, everything works, the roughness values, the albedo works when it's still light in shade, and then we drag and drop it into the scene. Basically, simple as that. So in the next one, we can see this is kind of like a more snowy kind of Arctic environments that we have. And the next one kind of shows you the different pack level actors that we actually use. So this is just a fraction of them. We have a ton more, but you can see like if you look at on the left, we have like some actual like building constructions. In the background, you have like even a bigger piece of a city. That one is made of probably like 300 pieces or more. And then at the front, we have all of these natural pack level actors that we made by mixing some scans with custom made assets and into almost small environments that we could then just pile together. And again, these environments are very detailed, but at the same time left intentionally partly barren, so we could then set rest on top. Because if you put too much detail onto these pack level actors, what you find is that then you cannot art direct how you want the scene to look as much. So we didn't want to go too overboard with detail on them and just keep them, as useful as possible for our workflow.
Also avoid repetition. Like it just allows us to kind
Yes.
of tweak it once we put it in, just add a tiny little touch. But yeah, these things are a superpower because you just build bigger Lego collections out of your small Legos, and then you can use those and just infinitely create them. So it just saves so much time.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
like before you could use blueprints, right? Or what a lot of people use kind of groups as well. But if you duplicate, for instance, a group and you start placing it around your level, and then you realize that you made a mistake and one of the pieces that you placed in the group is kind of like slightly slanted and is showing the edge. You now have to go back to every single group that you placed in the level and modify that piece individually. While with the pack level actors, you literally just right click, move the piece, and it updates on all the pack level actors that you
Everything.
placed. So
Exactly.
that saved us a ton of time. That was really, really useful.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I do love that it sounds like the workflows you've set up have been they sound very art forward. It's with the intention of actually getting in there and building and creating right there in the moment, which sounds just fun too. You just get to go in there and build it and make it, and that's awesome.
Yeah, it's we have a really iterative process in the office. So these workflows really allowed us to just create the way we would do an environment is we would normally just create a loop piece, like a tiny corner of that same environment, and just bring it to the quality that we really want it to look like when it hits gold or alpha, depending on the stage of the process that we were. And then we would review this with Haldor and with the rest of the team and just get feedback like this works, it doesn't work, like we need to change this needs to be bigger. So what we can then, thanks to this workflow, we can then go back and modify these environments in a very quick way to apply that feedback and just move on, set dressing. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's definitely it's very art focused because obviously cheeky artists, we were always we were walking into the office in the morning. We were like, "Have you seen this tech? Yeah, that's great. Let's get it in. Yeah. This gonna help us a ton. Yeah, let's go. Let's do it." And then we try to sell it to Haldor and to the technical team.
That's where again you start with the meeting with, okay, hear me out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
There were a ton of hear me outs.
There's a lot of those. Yeah, I was gonna say there's a lot of those. But if everybody's super aligned and passionate about getting the best end result, usually if it's sensible, everybody will kind of step behind and champion this thing together. So
Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely.
Everyone's open to making it just as cool as it can possibly be, and that's all you can ask for.
That's the goal.
Exactly. And and lastly, once you have all these cool environments like created and looking so good, the best thing that you can do is destroy them, right? So we, we, we created.
That was such a good setup,
right? It was completely unintentional. It just came out. So we have a lot of mechanics in the game where you can break stuff. Like Rin has really powerful magic
powers,
and destructive powers that she can use to change the environment around there and really affect the environments that you're going to be traversing. So destruction was really important for us from minute one. So we attacked destruction in two different ways, depending on where was it going to be applied, basically. So runtime destruction, like the kind of assets that you can just walk around and slash or just
use your powers
spray
on
away
them.
with your
Yeah.
to use your powers. We use them with chaos. So the Unreal Chaos system is super powerful and super quick. So you basically grab your mesh, convert it into a geometry collection, and fracture it the way you want, and then just put it in engine, hook it to a blueprint, and it works. Basically, it's very quickly. But we have a mechanic that you can see in the trailer actually, where she kind of like builds a city back from like a city tower back from scratch, where we actually need to be able to go back and forth in that destruction, rewind the destruction, or bring it forward.
I just got PTSD. Just as you said that, I just got like a strike PTSD from having to solve that issue with the team. Man, that was a
Yes.
lot of trouble. But go into
That
it.
was
Yeah.
a little trouble, and I think it was actually a really cool solution that we came up with. So as you can see on the screen at the moment, if it was a natural or kind of like a construction made of stone or things like that, we use a Blender add-on called Cracker, and this Cracker add-on, what it does is it allows you to create really quick fractures, and you can art direct the displacement of the fracture and the location and rotation and the bend and everything. Once you have the fractures, it actually creates the surface that you cut with, and it UVs that surface automatically. So you can apply a material to that broken surface, the same as you would do with the chaos, and then you can export those meshes individually and bring them to the engine. And what we also did is we brought these meshes into Maya, where one of our colleagues, an animator, has another really cool plugin, and I have the name of it, called Ragdoll Dynamics. And what that plugin does, if we go into the next video, I think it is, that plugin allows us to bring the mesh into Maya, create a simple collision out of every single piece that we have broken that mesh into, and apply a bone to that collision. So then in Maya, we simulate the destruction of the piece, and we record that destruction, that simulation, into an animation. We bake it into an animation. So then we can grab that destruction animation, bring it into Unreal Engine, and then use those pieces, those nanite meshes, and apply them into each one of the bones. So we have still a very high density mesh that is just playing a very cheap animation, cheap as in runtime, um, that looks as detailed as we possibly want. And we can also add direct. So you can see in there how there's like a couple of cubes that just move around left and right in Maya. And that's basically our animator just pushing things in one direction or the other and just making sure that the gameplay areas fall exactly where we need. Like in there's a platform that Rin needs to jump on. So that platform is falling exactly where we need it to be, thanks to being able to art direct these beats. So yeah.
Just to add on to this context, because the key thing of why we're going through this effort with the animations is just because this needs to work in gameplay, and we need to be able to freely wind this back and forth in gameplay, which is like as part of a game mechanic that's present in the game. As we saw in the trailer, if we're possibly able to bring that up from the trailer, it should be pretty early on where the tower appears. You can see that there's a tower being restored right after the shot, I believe. Yeah, here we
There
go.
you go.
So you can see that she's able to restore a tower and a bridge right in front of her. But what's maybe not, immediately visible here is that this is not a cinematic. This is a mechanic in the game, and being able to control
awesome.
that as a player is is where the headache comes from. Being able to wind that back and forth, and then figuring out because if you just think about it as a mechanic without spoiling anything, like you got to think about, okay, what's the player able to jump on? Where's the player able to stand? If it's fallen a certain halfway through, will that allow the main character to access this point, which is part of this puzzle or this platforming or whatever? And that's why if you can go back to the falling simulated platform that we had in the last video, I believe it is.
Yep, it's this one.
Yeah, it's this one. So what I was talking about, there's a platform that we have to keep perfectly level in this simulation. And the reason why we have to keep it level is because Rin should be able to stand on it at any point. So even though we simulate the destruction, it's important that we are so able to kind of within that simulation control for gameplay purposes. Okay, that platform on the left there that is white on this image needs to be able to support the player throughout the entire break. Or like as an example, I don't know this exact platform, but that's certainly how it kind of goes for this mechanic, and that's why it was so important for us to like really dive into destruction, and why it was such a big part of, as I had mentioned, a big part of the kind of right out of the gate. We had to think about it and solve it for a lot of stuff in the game, because not only can Rin break stuff, but she can actually kind of control them in that way.
And we are all gamers, and we all like going into our game and just make sure that we break everything that we find in our path. So, so it was really important to have that in the game as well.
Yeah. I mean, destruction is fun.
It is fun. It's so satisfying to watch. Yeah.
I need to know if there's ever been a point in time where someone has just opened the game and gone like a wrecking ball through absolutely everything to see what all can get destroyed.
I mean, look, more like destroying the project than the actual, the actual destructibles.
That counts, kind of.
Yeah, it was funny when we started doing this destruction. We obviously, it was like we were blown away. It was like, oh, this looks great, and we had these runtime chaos destructions. And I think the first destruction we made had like 80 different pieces or something like that, the mesh. And we played the destruction. It was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Okay, put 10 of them together. So we put 10 together, we blast it, and the engine goes like.
Computer is on fire. There's smoke in the office.
Yeah. So that helped us create some kind of guidelines. Okay, this is the amount of destructible meshes that we can place together.
Yeah.
This is the maximum amount that we can put together, so the frame drop is barely noticeable or not noticeable at all.
Yeah, because you also got to think about despawning them, especially not the big game mechanics ones, but if you have like barrels and boxes and stuff that you can break, you got to think about like, okay, how many can you break, but also how quickly do they despawn? How do they despawn? How to make the player not notice that? What does the inside of that box look like? How can it affect? Will enemies break it? Like, there's a lot to think about for anyone who's worked on destruction in a game. It's a big headache.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not simple, especially for one that looks as realistic as this one does. Like you said, finding a way for things to maybe disappear in a timely manner without it just kind of popping out of existence and maybe breaking immersion. I'm sure that's a challenge.
Yeah,
it's a challenge. Yeah,
it probably continues to be forever, and it's never going to be perfect. But I think we're doing the team's doing a fantastic job of making really good use of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is all insane. First of all, if I may just start there. This is crazy. Like I said, all of the systems and pipelines that you have built out just for making the world itself, because we're not even covering anything else like NPCs or combat or anything. This is just the world, and that's so much already in and of itself.
Yeah, we go ahead, Ed.
No, it's basically just what we mentioned earlier. It's like we have a lot of passion, and at the same time, like we have a half remote team. So two of the guys in our team, or three of the guys in our team, the team has been growing towards the end of the production. But like part of the team is in the studio, and part of us are abroad. Like obviously, having a job that has the studio in Iceland and being remote is probably the worst situation to be remote in the universe, right? Because it's Iceland. But despite that, we are always on call. All together and always kind of like talking to each other. And so when we come out with a problem, like, because obviously we have a lot of ownership in this game, like each one of us, because the game is so big and there's not a lot of us, we had to take on whole levels by ourselves. Obviously, then another colleague went and polished, and another colleague went and adjusted this and that, but we had to take whole levels into ourselves. So there's a lot of problems that come up, and a lot of puzzles that you need to solve to bring that level to life. But thanks to having a team that is so involved and everyone is so interested on just exploring, not just using the tech that we always use, but kind of like just trying new stuff and going a bit further forward and searching to see what can solve our problem. We have managed to come up with like fairly cool solutions, a really cool solution. I mean, I really like how the game is looking like. I'm very proud of it. To almost all the problems that we come up with. So yeah, it's been hugely an iterative process of the whole team.
And it's also just to add on to that point as well, like the working with a 40-person team, like you said, we're talking about like one part of it, but it just means that, you know, we kind of, while we're only 40 people, that we turn to the strengths of that by being like a very tight-knit team that works really closely together, extremely collaborative, extremely communicative, and also just having a lot of trust for each other to come up with the solutions. And it goes a long way if you have that, because you can only do what is in front of you, but you gotta kind of just trust the other people to get there as well, and that takes amazing people. But what we kind of skipped out on, yeah, like you said entirely, is that, you know, we had to, for this game, we had to figure out how to scan humans because we built our own scanning rig internally as well, and then we built our own motion capture space to capture all the story of the game and all the gameplay animations, which are in the thousands, if not tens of thousands. So there was a lot that went into just this one game.
Wow. I
Yeah.
mean, even just from the trailer alone, it looks like it's ultimately paid off, but
We hope
that
so.
is
Yeah.
such a tremendous amount of work for a pretty small team for
Yeah.
that level of production.
Yeah, high ambitions. We got high ambitions.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it's paying off. It's looking great. Well, if y'all are open to it, there's a few questions that we've been pulling from chat throughout while we've been talking about different things here that I want to make sure we can ask before we wrap up. If you're good with that, I'm going to
Sure.
ask them anyway. So the only answer you can give is yes, but
Shoot, go for it.
there we go. That's what I wanted to hear. So one, everyone is in agreement that this is beautiful, and there's lots of congratulations on the tremendous work that you've done thus far and that
Thank
we've
you
been
guys
able to look
so
at and
much.
see so far.
Thank you.
One thing that folks are really curious about as well is the sky, because they've mentioned that the sky itself is just beautiful every time they've seen it. So they're curious if you use something like ultra dynamic sky or what you do for that.
So the sky has been a process. We started using ultra dynamic sky. We to create like the mood of the scenes that we wanted. But halfway through, we wanted to have something a bit more like we wanted to be able to blend between different lighting scenarios fairly quickly. So our engineer, who is some genius, he created a system to be able to blend in between different lighting settings seamlessly. So we stopped using ultra dynamic sky to use this kind of like integrated system, and then but we relied heavily on volumetric clouds from the classic volumetric clouds from Unreal that look absolutely great, and we also use some skyboxes that we found from a really cool pack that we then authored and tweaked to our needs. So it's kind of a mixture of all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, that is awesome. There is this one's I feel like a maybe potentially larger question than it sounds at first. But a few folks are also curious about just through the process of creating all of this and learning how to scan, putting it in, optimizing it for the game, all that kind of good stuff. If you were to rescan the assets or redo any part of this world creation process that you've set up, knowing what you know now, what would that be? Would you do anything different? Would you follow the same pipelines, or what would you tell your past self in preparation, basically?
I think, yeah, it is a large question, but I'm going to try to keep my answer short. Ed probably might have a different answer, but I think my gut would have been just scan more, because you get lucky with weather in Iceland when you get cloudy days, and when you get lucky when it's not snowy and winter. Like, there's such a finite amount of period, and the amount of times where we just could not scan to get the solution and we had to problem solve in different ways was not worth it. Just next project, we just, if there's a good day, we just go out and we scan the thing.
Yeah.
For my end, what I would say is some of these things that we discussed, like the pack level actors, is something that we started using extensively a bit further down the line, not really from the beginning. So the system that we finally came up with of like, okay, we have to make this biome. We're gonna set up the level actors first, and then we set dress. If we had used from the beginning, it would have been even easier to go through everything. So 100%, if someone is looking for advice to start set dressing something, use pack level actors. Set up your mood, create your pieces, and then you go from there. And you realize how quickly you can iterate. Because like in the video where my colleague was using the pack level actors, you could see a whole like structure and bridge and stuff that he was working on. All of that was made in like 3 minutes. Like we were on a call and we were talking about like, okay, I'm gonna make this presentation for Inside Unreal, and I just want to put all these pack level actors together and just kind of like show all the ones that we've done. And he opened the folder and saw them, was like, oh, these ones look cool. I haven't worked on this level. I haven't seen them before. And he started like putting them and combining them together. And he built this in 3 minutes. So you can imagine how powerful this can be when you have to create a big level. So 100% using pack level actors for set dressing is a game changer. That would be my biggest thing to change for the future.
Yeah. Both are totally understandable. Although again, I think the process that got you there is also there's something that's there's some merit in learning, right?
Absolutely.
In the lessons learned.
It's the only way. I mean, you just gotta learn.
And once we use pack level actors from the beginning, we will then realize that there's something else that we were not doing that we should have done. So it's like you will never get to that point where it's just like perfecting the technique as much as you can.
You just got the world solved in your head. No. I mean, it's always iterative, but it's always fun dealing with those issues and figure out the solutions. And it's a good process.
Yeah. Absolutely. Another question folks had was about some of the individual sections of the world as well. They're curious how you go about playtesting them. Do you finalize one section until it's pretty close to how you think it'll be by its final version and then go through and playtest, or are you playtesting throughout the different iterations that you were mentioning?
Yeah, so this is definitely iterative. And when you're playtesting at different stages of development, you're definitely playtesting for different things. Like if you're playtesting a white box environment that has, it's everything's a placeholder. Everything is just like, oh, this blue cube is actually this mechanic, and this red cube is actually that mechanic. So imagine if, and like that's a totally different playtest from when everything's assembled, and your playtest is going, I can see beneath that mesh. Like that's such a different like range of stuff to be dealing with. So I would definitely say that, throughout the process, you're definitely testing for different things. You're always looking for some sort of hole, but it tends to vary as you go. But it's so essential. You just got to do it at every phase. It's just critical.
Yeah. Also, like having such a small team, you don't really have a lot of margin to make like big errors and having to be fixing things continuously. So one thing that really helped us is just being very true to the white box where we could. So all the areas in the white box that were kind of like just traversal, just green walking, we could do a bit whatever we wanted with that. But all the gameplay areas, we just try to stick to the gameplay locations as much as possible. Make sure that if there's a ledge, that ledge is perfectly, the mesh that we place is perfectly on that corner of the cube, to make sure that we don't have to then go back and move all the gameplay bits or move the set dressing to position. So we try to follow that also because the level designers are very scary. So we don't want to face no, we love we love our level designers. You cannot see. You cannot see. But I have a picture of one of them that says, "I believe in you. You can do it." And it's always on my desk, and it encourages me. So, but yeah, just trying to be really, really true to the white box is probably the best way to go for it.
Yeah, and work closely with them if you have to change it, because there's so much at play. I mean, you have metrics for the main character, you have sightlines that you maintain for different reasons, you have the companion who's got a path through the world, you have AI who's walking around or doing stuff. So you move one piece of rock up 5 centimeters, and it's like, oh, you blew the whole thing to smithereens. Like,
basically.
Yeah.
Your companion is stuck in level 2 and you're level
Yeah,
17,
yeah.
and there's
Yeah.
Like, where's Abram? Oh, he's stuck on this pebble.
Yeah. And Abram is like trying to move around the pebble.
So but it's a close collaboration, as with everything. So when you do have to make changes, stuff like that, you just got to work together. Usually, it's just 2 people getting on a call, collaborating, getting it solved, and then moving on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I do love that there has been absolutely no fear thus far whenever talking about changing things very rapidly for production, but there was some slight genuine fear to upset the level designers. So this is good to tuck away.
It's genuine. He's very scary. No, but the level design team, obviously, in a production where the team is the size of ours, everyone is really busy. So going back and redoing something is normally like you need to give something up so you can do that, right? So it's very important that when you really want to change something, you have a really good reason behind it. But our level team has been so flexible because we have changed the white boxes quite a lot in a lot of the levels, and they've been really flexible, helping us like get to how the environment team wants the level to look like. So I have no complaints really.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's wonderful to hear. There was another question. It's okay if you can't answer it. I would understand. Because you've mentioned that there's many biomes. I'm sure we probably haven't seen all of them in the trailer. We've seen a few of them. But with that in mind, can you tell us which biome is your favorite of the lot? They're curious both just from an aesthetic standpoint, which biome is your favorite, and then which one was your favorite to work on, even if it's maybe not your favorite aesthetically, but
my answer is so easy here. It's the one with the glacier, because it took so long to make and looks so good. And it's in the trailer, so I can say it.
There you go. There you go.
Wow. Asking me which one of my babies I like the most is very difficult. I don't know, because like the environment team that we have, like my colleagues are just extremely talented, and every time I see something that they're working on, it just blows my mind. So I wouldn't choose one that I've done, because like the stuff that my colleagues did is just mind blowing. So one of the environments that I really like is the volcano. My colleague Keelan did an amazing work on this one. But I don't know, because like you can also see in the trailer parts of more like a black sand kind of locations that were made by our colleague Chris, that are he's got like a crazy hand to make things look just natural, as if it was like real life. Exactly those locations there. So that's quite amazing. And there's one environment that I cannot speak about from another of our environment team, that is called Graham, and that one is just gonna blow your mind. That's gonna be kind of like, it's like the icing on the cake of the game. I'm not gonna choose. I cannot choose.
I was gonna say, because the thing about the different biomes as well is they're all so like drastically different. They all have their own very unique charms, and the team behind it is just absolutely just like amazing at making things, and they all bring their own strengths into the environments that they're working on. And the way that we work also, environment artists, we're switch, like one will do the setup of one environment and do the polish of another. So it's really kind of a fluid workflow. And that just brings out the best, because it plays into both persons' strength when it comes to that. So
yeah, for sure. Definitely. And I imagine that's also pretty foolproof way of making sure that everything feels like it still belongs to the same world too, where you don't go from one biome to the next and you're like, wait a second, where am I?
Also just working closely together, because they're, like they said, they're in calls usually during most of the day, as I mentioned. So that really helps, because you have everybody's eyes on everybody's work all day, like almost like whether you're muted or not, you're just streaming your screen, whatever. So it always subject to getting feedback from very good people.
Yeah, there's also like a couple of things to keep in mind. That is like each environment artist has a different way of set dressing, and kind of like building the world. So you have people who's very focused on the vegetation and making sure that everything looks as lush, as amazing as possible. There's another one that is really focused on the ground, just making sure that the ground is looking super detailed. So it's very important, this constant feedback. We're sometimes streaming our screen, and everyone is seeing what we are doing, and you have a comment from someone going like, dude, have you tried doing this instead of that? And that is really what brings the game together, because you don't have a level that looks in a way and then the next level looking a completely different vibe, because it's done by two different people. So it's kind of like our way to kind of even out everything and just bring the strengths of everyone into each level. And it's
Yeah.
worked really well for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I have one final question for you all, and it's one I must ask. I simply must. It's a requirement before we can end the show. I have to ask this one. And
Let's
that
go.
is, through this whole process, through all of the tools that you've used, from scanning to all of the mixing, the displacement, destruction, everything, through everything you've done so far, if you had to distill it down into one piece of advice that you would give to other developers, what would that one piece of advice be?
Ed, do you want to go first?
Yes. I would say, just don't get stuck with the things that you know, and experiment. Don't be afraid of testing. Obviously, if the project allows, if the time allows, but just don't be afraid of trying something new, and bringing some new technology, and try to work things out in different ways, because that's what really has given us a huge leap forward when we were thinking creatively, solutions for the environment. So yeah, that would basically be my answer. Just that this is not an industry where you can just learn to paint and paint that way for the rest of your life, right? Like you have new tech coming in almost every day, and you need to adapt to that tech, because players are going to request it from you. They're going to demand it. Unreal Engine allows, for us to create more and more detailed world and environments, but that's also becoming a requirement from the people that now knows that those things are achievable. So the players want it, and I, as a player, obviously also feel that way, right? Like I open a game and I want and obviously there's loads of different kinds of games. You can have a 2D game, you can have like a low poly game, and all of them have their space, right? But if you're trying to create a realistic game, people are very, they demand a certain level of quality. So I think that's the only way to achieve that, is just being on the latest trend, and just being able to develop yourself and explore. So that would be my advice.
So just to cover,
I love
the
that.
question was the lesson, or
What is one piece of advice that you would give other developers just based off of everything you've learned and done thus far?
I think make sure you're excited about what you're doing, because it's going to be a long run, and you have to kind of chase excitement in a way, like find things that interest you, because most of the times that's what really matters, because other people are going to get excited about those things as well. And that's, I think, the most important part about making games, is you're making an experience for somebody.
Yeah, I love that. I love both of those. Fantastic advice to give everyone. And thank you both so much for being here today and walking through all of this incredible work that you've done. I personally and very selfishly am so excited for when the game comes out. I'm wishlisted already, and everyone else
Fantastic.
watching should too.
Thank you.
We'll drop the link to the game in the chat here in just a second, of course, so you can check it out for yourselves. But yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so much for walking through the process of making the world of this incredible project that you've done, and walking us through it with you. Thank you for being here and taking the time to do so.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tina, Dan, everybody, for tuning in and be willing to listen. We really hope that you will enjoy the game when it comes out, and just, thanks for the good vibes.
Yep. Yeah, and see you in EMA.
Yes, absolutely. And I have to agree with you. Thank you so much, everyone who came to watch the show and participate and ask questions. You being here is why we're here. So thank you for taking the time to be here with us and hang out and have a good time. If anyone happened to pop into the show partway through, or there's something you want to go back and rewatch, don't worry, because we post all of our streams in video format that can be viewed on demand on both our Twitch and YouTube channel at Unreal Engine. You can also keep up with us at Unreal Engine on all of our socials to keep up with the latest news, updates, all that kind of good stuff. And then last but certainly not least, if you haven't already, I highly recommend that you come join us on the Epic Developer Community. That's where we house our documentation for the engine. We have forums where you can meet other developers and get your questions answered, or answer the questions of other devs who may be struggling and need some help, as well as things like learning tutorials, learning paths, resources like that are made both by the Epic staff, as well as just awesome Rockstar members of our community too. So go check that out. It's a great place to be. Pretty much everything you could need in regards to the engine is there in some way or another. So check it out. I am biased, but it's pretty cool. You will like it, I promise. And that's it for this week. Just a reminder for everyone, we are taking a break for the next 2 weeks, but don't worry, we'll be back same as usual after that. So we'll see you after those 2 weeks. And thanks so much for watching. We'll run the trailer one last time, I think. We need to see it in its full glory one last time at the end of this. But thanks so much, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye.
I used to swear by my father's oath to protect the wards is to protect our people, and if it claims our lives, what's one life lost for the sake of the many?
And now, what do you swear by today?
The only one that matters is my brother. And I will kill the people who took him from me.
I hear not the clamor of conquerors. The pestilence must be purged.
Your father was right about one thing. The wards are breaking. And should we fail, it may spell another end.
PlayStation